everyone, ako po si Danica Amor M. Domingo.
At ako naman si Sam De Los Santos. Dito, tatalakayin natin ang mga importanteng issue tungkol sa governance at development.
Ating ding mapag-uusapan ng ilan sa mga teorya at resulta ng aming mga ginagawang research.
At ito ang pato.
Usapang Public Affairs at Development.
Technology transfer has become a buzzword among universities in the last decade, but has gained traction only in the last few years. To support technology transfer in the Philippines, the Philippine Government has enacted the Technology Transfer Act of 2009 or the Republic Act 10055 into law in 2010 to promote the use and commercialization of intellectual properties for national development and progress. Technology transfer refers to the process by which one party systematically transfers to another party the knowledge for the manufacture of the product, the application of a process or rendering of a service, which may involve the transfer, assignment, or licensing of intellectual property rights.
So in 2019, the Center for Strategic Planning and Policy Studies of the College of Public Affairs and Development implemented a research study which assessed the compliance of stakeholders to the Technology Transfer Act of 2009. So by stakeholders, I was a part of the project team, looked into general funding agencies, government research development and institutions, and state universities and colleges. So this is a recently concluded study, and to know more about the results or what we have gathered from over 80 institutions, we have here today Mr. Haji C. Halutot, University Researcher and Project Leader. Magandang araw po, Sir Haji.
Magandang araw sa iyo, Danica. And magandang araw sa iyo, Sam.
Hello, Sir Haji. So for today's episode, we will talk about your project, and it's entitled Assessment of Stakeholders' Compliance to the Philippine Technology Transfer Act of 2009. Can you tell us about it and the main objectives of the study?
Okay, this research is policy monitoring research, and the project funds were provided by the Technology Transfer Promotion Division of PICARD, the OST PICARD, and we started the project late 2019, a few months before the pandemic. So basically, our main objective is just to determine the level of compliance of the various stakeholders within the agricultural innovation system. So we did some surveys to determine what activities they undertook, and what pertinent laws existing in our country that affects the technology transfer environment or process in the country. We also tried to determine the performance of technology transfer among research development institutions, and including state universities and colleges. And of course, we identified some problems and made some policy recommendations based on those problems.
Let me just ask, Sir Haji, who are the stakeholders that you have included in this study?
Okay, in our study, we categorized our stakeholders as those who undertake the actual research. So these are the research domain, which includes the academe, the universities and colleges, and of course we have the what we call the RDIs, the research and development institutions. So the RDIs, to differentiate with the SUCs, the mandates of RDIs are basically just to do research.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, also to transfer the technologies generated to industry or interested parties. Under the law, state universities and colleges are considered RDIs, but we made a distinction such that SUCs, or universities for that matter, have an additional function, which we know is instruction.
Okay.
Yes, and the results will reveal the effect of this later on when we discuss the results. So that's the academic or the research domain. The other one is the what we call the business or the industry domain. So of course, in technology transfer, there are two sides. Basically, the inventor side or the research side, and of course those who adopt the technology, which is basically the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So in our study, we don't have much of respondents for the business side. We have 3 case studies, no? But
Yes.
these case studies are basically also researchers or scientists that engage into business, no? And the third stakeholder, the bridging, no? And this includes the regulatory bodies and the government funding agencies or GFAs, no? And some quasi or multi-sectoral bodies, no? Which in the law is the Freedom or Fairness Opinion Board, no? Which generates the Fairness Opinion Report, no? The report is basically, as the name implies, it assesses how fair, no, the agreement or the proposed agreement between the inventor and the business, no, who will adopt the technology, no, how fair the agreement is, no? So those basically are the stakeholders we considered in our study.
Ako. Sir Hadi, since nabanggit niyo na po yung mga stakeholders, so we have here the general funding agencies, the government RDIs, the SUCs, the business domain, and the
That's a lot.
yes, the Fairness Opinion Board members. So, ano po ba yung coverage po ng law? What is the salient points of the Technology Transfer Act of 2009?
Okay, thank you for asking that question. The law covers basically only government-funded researches, no? So,
Okay.
if a state university has received funding from a private entity or, for example, or foreign government, and it generates a technology, no? Under the law, it is not really covered. So, what is covered under the law are government-funded researches that resulted in the generation of technology, no? So, even if it's a private university, as long as the money used for generating the technology is from the government, it is covered by the law.
That's
So-
interesting.
Yes. The salient points, well, basically, the main selling point of RA 155 is that they transferred the ownership of the intellectual property, or technology, to the RDIs, or the research implementing units. Before, kasi the right to the intellectual property belongs to the funding agency, if not, I'm not mistaken. But now they gave it to the RDIs.
RDIs.
So that's the main point. But of course, there are other many provisions, no? Salient points, of course. The RDIs, including the SUCs, no, must ensure that intellectual properties generated using government funds must be protected, no? And there's a prescribed time for this, no? You cannot wait for years before it's disclosed and protected unless the inventor decides to make it a trade secret. When it's a trade secret, you're not required to disclose it, because once you disclose it, it's not a trade secret anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
So, first is IP protection, no? Second, under IP protection, there are many mechanisms, no? It can be through existing protocols or offices, no, or existing policies of the SUCs. But in case there are no existing policies, no, the law mandates, no, that RDIs, no, create this what they call technology transfer protocol, no. And under the technology transfer protocol, they should create an office, no.
Yes.
In our report, we call it Technology Transfer Office, but it can be called by many other names, no, like Technology Licensing Office, I don't know, BDO in case of our university, right?
Sir, na may knowledge transfer office, so IP office, and then din po yung technology transfer. So they use a lot of names for the technology transfer office, right?
So ano pa ba? Salient points, incentives, of course. I think the incentive system has been there for most RDIs and SUCs. But especially for the academe, we all know incentives are given more for the publication of scientific results. So journal articles, books, monographs. But for the Technology Transfer Act, of course, the focus will be the technologies transfer or commercialized.
I just wonder, Sir Haji, why did the law focused on government-funded researches only?
I cannot answer that now because I was not there when they deliberated on this. But my intelligent guess is, of course, the government can only like make rules,
For those that
that they provide, for those funds that they provide.
Right.
If the fund is already from the private sector, I don't think they have the power to how do you call that?
Control on
To control that.
the experiments perhaps, or the activities that would be related to that, because it's not part of the government mandate perhaps, right?
It will be just between the private funding agency and the research institution.
Okay.
So whatever agreement they
And in addition to that, Ms. Jarino and Sir Haji, I think the government also want to ensure that the results of the researches that they fund is being utilized by the public for the good of the public din syempre.
Yes, that's one of the provisions of the law, and it is explicitly stated there that they have to encourage technology commercialization.
That's nice.
I think I would like to go back to sa salient points. Also, they put in the march-in rights of the government. It basically means that if the inventor or the RDI did not disclose the intellectual property on time and did not apply for IP protection on time, the government has the right to march in and get the right for that intellectual property. But there are also some conditions wherein they can march in without the prescribed period lapsing. For example, if it is a matter of national security, probably if we were able to develop vaccine first, sana nga, how I wish we were the first, Of course, the government will not wait for you to patent it. I think they will march in for that IP and develop it as soon as possible. So, ang dami pa. There's a lot of provisions there, Monitoring of technology transfer progress. It is the responsibility both of the GFAs and the RDIs. And I think many of our government funding agencies are doing it. DOST, DA, they start monitoring the technology, or at least at the level of the IP protection and disclosure. They already have that process.
And even here in the university, we already have that even before the students can conduct their thesis, you have to sign a form declaring if you are going to generate an intellectual property out of
Yes,
it.
the prior art search form.
That's right.
And the disclosure form.
Yes,
So it's part of the law. Nandun din po siya sa law.
Alright. So how about we go back to your stakeholders, engaging the compliance of stakeholders. How did you go about choosing who will be the participants or respondents of the survey and the key informant interviews?
Okay, selecting let's start with the RDIs. So it's not that difficult because we have very few RDIs in the country. Most of the RDIs are attached agencies of the Department of Science and Technology. Okay, there are quite a few, maybe 10 at most. I don't know the exact number. And we also have research and development institutions under the Department of Agriculture. So what we did is consult the funding agency, and they gave us some ideas. So we chose 4 under DOST and 4 not under DOST. Okay, so that's for the RDIs. For the state universities and colleges, so we have 110 SUCs, no, based on our own count.
Wow.
So what we did, initially what we did is to make it a scientific method of sampling, no, selected randomly but by proportional, no, proportion. So what we did is consider the R&D funding in, I think it's in 2018, based on the General Appropriations Act. So we used 2018 because the project started in 2019. So 2018 is the available data. So the higher the budget, the higher chance of being selected as a respondent.
Okay.
So we chose initially 21 SUCs, if I can remember it correctly. However, when the pandemic was declared and lockdown and was enforced,
We were in the middle of gathering data
Yes.
for the project.
and mobility is basically
Very difficult.
it's prohibited, no, basically. So we thought of some innovative ways of interviewing. No? So before, kasi what we did is we have our respondents. No? So our respondents are basically high-level officials. No? And we all know high-level officials are not that easy to talk to because of scheduling concerns. No? They have many meetings, etc. So to force them, no, we schedule trips to their offices. So that's our way of forcing them to answer the questionnaire. No? So the questionnaire, we assume the questionnaire will be answered by different people. No? It's not.
It's not just
You
one
can-
person who will
Yes.
answer it.
You cannot
Can't
get all
answer.
the answers from a
Yes.
single office. So we gave them time, no, but the visit will basically force them. But of course, when the lockdown was declared, there's no visit anymore. So it's all online. So what we did and what our evaluator suggested is to just use the online platform for the interviews and also for the survey, no, which is the only way to do the survey during that time. So I told the team and the evaluator that if we are going to do it an online survey, might as well send the survey to all the SUCs, 106, no? And we received responses from what?
I think 70.
76.
76. So that's
Not it's in the high 60% response rate, no? But we have to accept that, no, as a response rate because we kept on following up, no? But if there's no response, and then we cannot do so.
research has its own limitations when it comes
we gave
to
them a
time.
chance and they
Yes.
passed up on the chance, no?
Um,
So that's how we chose the respondents for this survey, no?
Mhm.
For the KII, I think that Danica can
I think
explain, because Danica was in charge of the
Opo,
key
right.
informant interviews. no?
So Sir Haji mentioned earlier that we have initially a list of RDIs, SUCs, and GFA. So for the key informant interview, so because we cannot interview all of the SUCs or RDIs, so we just retained the original randomly sampled institutions for the KI. So for the randomly sampled, medyo ano naman po siya, proportionally chosen because we have representatives from all SUC levels. So we have representatives from the OST and BA. So I think okay naman po yung KIs namin kung paano siya napili.
it's actually a good thing that I don't know, but would you say it has become facilitative that you can conduct the interviews online or the surveys online instead of just going to each SUCs? Did it give you an advantage?
Kinda, but
But it would be better if you have.
yes, it's the
you
same
were
din po
able to
kasi
have
since
that.
we had the same interview, we still high-ranking officials of SUC, so we still need to find time to interview them. But in terms of costing siguro, mas mababa yung cost since we were conducting it all online.
I think yes, I agree. No? I was about to say that the only advantage is we were able to save money. But in terms of scheduling, every meeting is online. So you still have to find time, no? Especially dito sa mga high level officials. It's not that easy. No? Most of the time we just interview their representatives. So yun. And the interaction kasi using the online platform is not that spontaneous, no? We don't know who will speak first. There's no raise hand icon being used. So and the time lag between the when the response was made and when it was heard from the other side, no? Sometimes it's quite significant, no? That the conversation is quite messed up na, no? Yun.
I see.
The speaker is starting to talk about another thing, and then the follow-up question has just arrived, no? And even if it's just a 1 second lag, it messes up the flow of the conversation.
I see.
But what we did is just we allow Danica to facilitate the...
I feel like Danica has a lot
Yeah.
to say about her experience with this project.
So she facilitated the interview and we just sent our questions through chat.
Through
So
chat. Alright.
we don't want many people asking because it really sometimes results in some confusion.
Okay.
Thank you, Sir Haji. So now we know, Ms. Sam, how the project went on from the background of the policy that was monitored, in this case, the Technology Transfer Act of 2009, and how our team chose its respondents.
Right. We also talked about Sir Haji and his team, how they managed the data gathering activities,
Yes.
especially that they were hampered by the pandemic, how they navigated through immobility because of COVID-19. Now, I think we are ready to know about the significant findings of this research, and we can get to know more about the aspects of compliance, performance, the problems relating to technology transfers in the state colleges and universities, government research development institutions, general funding agencies, and other stakeholders in the Philippines. That's quite a lot, but that would be
For next episode. So for our listeners and watchers, let's tune in for the next episode to know more about the results of the study. And ako po si Danica Amor M. Domingo.
At ako naman po si Sam De Los Santos, at ito ang Patok.
Usapang Public Affairs at Development.